Good morning, Jody.
Hey, Miss Robin, how's it going?
Good.
You're back.
I'm back. My voice
You
is
couldn't handle
mostly
another
back.
week of me doing this by myself, could you?
Well, it wouldn't be fair to you. So,
So you
so
say.
here we are, Special Agent Mom podcast.
Indeed,
And,
yes.
and what is special about this week?
So this happens to be National Volunteer Week, and we have a special volunteer with us this morning. I'm going to start out with some introductions. I am Jody Drake, the Pratt County K-State Research and Extension Agent.
And
And you are?
I'm Robin Eubank Callis, the Barber County K-State Research and Extension Agent. And you want to introduce our guest?
I would love to. So yesterday at the 10th hour, I texted a very good friend of mine and volunteer, Shannon Bergner, who very graciously agreed to be on our podcast this morning. Shannon, would you like to tell us a little bit more about who you are, where you work, and why on earth I thought you would be a great person to talk to about volunteering?
Sure. So Shannon Bergner, and I am the Information Security Officer for the People's Bank in Pratt, and have been here now 25 years, which I was just we have a student from Kiowa County who's job shadowing today. And so as I was reflecting on some of that, I'm like, wow. Never said I was old, but as far as technology goes, I have seen a lot in 25 years. And so, I'm also privileged that the bank engages in and encourages, as we talk about volunteerism, has always supported me and the employees and getting out in the community and not only getting to know our customers, but just being involved. So, you'll people who know me know I have a sense of civic duty to the community. I love Pratt. Moved back here 25 years ago, and born and raised here. And so you begin to realize, and I'm fortunate enough to have one kid who is back home and teaching at Pratt High, and the others are out and seeing the world, and you realize. There's no place like home. And Pratt has always been home to me. And I think I feel that in all of my volunteer roles. But, and I think you asked me at the 10th hour because I struggle to ever say no. And you knew that.
Absolutely not. Robin and I just often fly by the seat of our pants is why. And we're not always very organized. But you, like me, grew up in this community. We're both Pratt High graduates.
Mhm.
We kind of live and breathe Pratt America, and we love it. And that's why I thought you'd be perfect to talk to, because we both can't say no. We both volunteer a lot in this community. It might be the death of us. I don't know.
I hope not, but yes.
I know.
I used to always say you can sleep when you're dead, but the closer I get to that, maybe not. I try to get a little more sleep these days, but it's still a struggle because there's a lot to do.
There's a lot to do. There absolutely is. Yeah. Yeah. Before we start grilling you with questions, Robin, would you pull us in a little bit about what National Volunteer Week is all about and why we celebrate it?
So National Volunteer Week was established in 1974. So we've been celebrating volunteers for that long. And it's this week in April, or close to this week in April every year. So, but I know with Extension, we're trying to celebrate the whole variety of volunteers in different ways that volunteers help shape the work that we do. According to research, volunteer time in Kansas is valued at $26 an hour. So if you can imagine, if we had to pay everybody who volunteered or even if just the three of us got paid for all the volunteer hours that we do, that would be a lot of money. And so
Mhm.
that's the equivalent of what we're giving back to our communities. So
I love that. I've
Yeah.
never heard that put to a dollar figure. And I have said in the past, I've never been a fan of incentivizing, monetarily, uh, to get volunteers. But with that in mind, it really is incredible. We have, you know, I think Pratt is blessed with a large volunteer population.
Mhm.
And, so having that reference that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that when we're talking to our stakeholders and our legislators and people who we want to invest in our programs, especially in extension, when we're reliant on public dollars, they know that this is look, this is what we're putting back into your community.
Mhm.
So I think that dollar amount's important to know. One of those things we put in our back pockets for
Mhm.
future use when we're
Yes.
talking to, yeah, yeah. So
Like that.
you and I both have had kids in 4-H. I still have one in 4-H.
I
So
think
I
I
know
do
that,
too. Well, Lindsay's been out tagging pigs recently.
oh yeah, she was the other night. She sure was. Yeah, so you still
Uh,
have a kid in 4-H too. And I
yep.
know she'll be probably sleeping in the pig barn again. So yeah, absolutely. Look, I have my 4-H shirt on today. I'm headed out to Kids Day on the farm. Uh,
Yes.
yes. So tell us a little bit about some of your volunteer roles in 4-H, past,
Right.
present, future.
Right. I have told you 100 times, but I tell others that I was a much better 4-H mom than I was a 4-H kid. I think you, as you mature, you see the values that you gained from being a 4-Her, and you want to drill that into your kids as well. And why I also say that I never did more yelling probably any time than during Fair Week to my kids, or they might think that anyway. But those values they take with them their entire life. I mean, all three of mine, whether it's the ability to speak in front of people, or to manage a project, or to recognize when things aren't going to work out the way you thought they would. I think 4-H teaches that, and also why I'm still involved. I still Fair Week is still the greatest week of the summer, and uh, it's because you bring all of that together on projects that you've worked an entire year on, and so there's also much less pressure as a parent, stepping back into the volunteer role now, that I don't have to worry about, or be wondering, if things are turned in on time and that I've met all the deadlines. Being a volunteer, you're there really in a much more helpful capacity. And also why I'm sure Lindsay would say she's still involved, and loves that opportunity to, share all of the things that she loved while she was a 4-Her, to share with the kids who are new to the project, or in my case, new in the horse barn, or new on the fairgrounds. I'm more involved now, from the with the entertainment committee, which has been, super fun. And although I haven't been able to attend all their meetings, oh my gosh, they're doing some amazing things. And the goal being to get more of the public involved. And
Mhm.
ours is a 4-H fair, and nobody disputes that. But getting more, bringing more attention to the fairgrounds and to what's happening in the barns and in the building, and all of the work that goes into pulling that off for a week in the summer.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah, I've always loved my time on the hill, as they say.
yeah. Yeah. the best place to be. Are you taking notes here, Robin, as a getting ready to have a new 4-H'er in 4-H?
Yes, I am a future 4-H mom at this point. He just turned 6, so
Okay.
I've got a little more time, but um,
Well, and
he,
I love that I'm asked, have been down several times to the Barber County Fair to judge the horse section of your round robin. Again, it's always a rewarding experience. You get to see different kids, and you know, at the point that they're in the round robin, they've already had a lot of success, and it's just an exciting time. And so I like to come down there and do that.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep. You have a new passion, a new volunteer passion in our community. And I would call it a hidden gem in our community. It's our B-29 museum. Robin, have you been out to it?
I actually have.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah.
Mhm.
It is
Yes.
pretty fantastic. And I know I've taken our 4-H club out there several times, well, at least a couple times. And I've been out there several times myself. If you haven't been out there, you should go. It is really a nice place. Shannon, how did you get involved with the B-29 museum?
How did I get involved? My Sam left for the Army
Yeah.
2 years ago in June, and he has, since he was 5, been so involved in World War II history. And I credit Papa Gene for all of that, and that interest. And Sam has known, he was going into the service since a little kid. And so when he left for the Army out of high school in 2023, and now is an infantry paratrooper with the 82nd in at Fort Bragg, um, you know, uh, I should say, what was I going to do with all my time when all the kids were gone as an empty nester? And
Jokes on
um,
you.
but there was definitely I saw a need. The B-29 museum uh, I think is short on volunteers, and I have grown and so appreciate the effort that has gone into bringing that museum to fruition. And it is the original parachute hanging tower on what was once known as Pratt Army Airfield. So you might hear it called PAF from time to time, but that's Pratt Army Airfield that was very active in 1943 to 45, 42 to 45, during World War II, where B-29 pilots came to Pratt to train. And there were over 6,000 people that lived on that base just north of Pratt. So when you think about our population today, has always been 6 to 7,000, and that the population in Pratt was double that in that short period of time. But you don't have to go far inside the museum to realize the impact that had on Pratt and on where we are today. And we have a unique history here. There were, I believe, 16 airfields across Kansas for training B-29 pilots. And we are the only ones who have a museum dedicated to that time. Other museums like Smoky Hill, and even our own Pratt Historical Museum, we do have a section in there referencing that period of time. But to have a museum specific to the various bombardment groups that trained out of Pratt is really fascinating. And for 2 years now, I've wished that I had paid more attention to my history teacher in school, but so I'm making up for a lot of lost time and following Milt Martin and George Stevens and Lonnie Detmer and John Cochran around when they're at the museum, because they have so much knowledge of the history up here. And we have a library at the museum, but Lindsay would be the first to tell you I'm not a good reader. I don't make time to read that. And so a lot of what I'm seeing and learning about that history out there is in the displays that Barbara and Mark Martin have put together. Fascinating things. We're called often. I just received an email yesterday about someone who has Pratt connections, who has connections to the Shrek and Fincham families that would like to donate some materials, some items to the museum. And I always say, of course, the answer is yes, we'll take
yes,
it.
yes.
And we
what I
have
do
a
when someone
whole,
has
we call it our wall of
Yeah.
fame, Pratt local history. We
Mhm.
have that special in the museum. And Sam is the youngest lifetime member. And so when the museum did their big initial I don't know if it was considered the grand opening at the time, but it was Memorial Weekend in 2008. No, I'm sorry, 2013. Sam was 8 years old, and
Oh.
Chuck Chauncey was here, and Sam, I have a picture of him sitting on Chuck's lap, and Chuck gave a whole presentation about his time with his bomb group and his training in Pratt, and so he didn't have to twist my arm too hard to say yes when the museum, they're like, you should get involved. I'd been out there with Sam, and now have been going to the board meetings monthly now for 18 months, couple years. And I love it. I love working with that group of people. I love that I come in with these crazy ideas like a 5K, and they just jump on board. And they have given me full support. And last year was the first 5K that we did, and had over 100. We had 102 registered runners, and it was just like, wow. And so when I was asked, are you going to do that again? I was like, well, I feel like I did all the work for the first year, so it would seem easier the second year, right? And so now we are on slate to or on schedule for the second annual 5K, and that will be June 7th. It's Miss Kansas weekend, which others have said you're nuts, but as a part of Kansas history, my angle, my wish is to get more of the surrounding counties, more Kansans out to the museum. And, we're starting with a 5K at 7:00 in the morning. You have the Miss Kansas parade downtown at 10 a.m., which, I had a military vehicle group, a couple of their members rode in last year's parade, and he told me, and they live in Wichita, it was the best parade they'd ever been in. And so they plan to bring more to the parade this year. And we've added a Veterans Appreciation Picnic. And so my emphasis right now is really on the veteran focus. And while I hope to have 200 runners in the 5K, and there's a 1-mile walk too, by the way, around the historical trail, which is all at the airfield. But my hope is to really get our veterans out there. And, it's amazing when you sit down and look at the population of veterans that we have in Pratt County. And I'll speak to the Elks and to the Legion in May at their meetings to encourage them to come out. Walmart, Tyler Frost jumped on board and is sponsoring the picnic event. And ironically, I do have a
Memorial Day weekend, right?
No, it's June 7th. It's 2 weekends after Memorial Day.
Same weekend as the 5K.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I told Randy, who manages the parade, that I want him to put all the veterans up front of the parade and then just bring them out to the museum. And but yeah, the picnic is really for them. And I'm working with Sergeant Wah, who recruits out of Pratt's Armory here, but we hope to do a missing man table ceremony, which is something really special that I think is something that's not been done for quite a while. But it's just because Memorial and Veterans Day weekends, etc., it's harder to get the population out there. And so I just picked one of the biggest weekends in Pratt, and want
Mine's
the
was just for the stars.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want the emphasis to be on our history
Yeah.
and on our veterans. And so that's really my focus with this event in June is to bring people out to that. And so it has been such a rewarding experience. There's a lot of things that I have gotten to do because of my relationship with the B29 board. And now I'm going to get all, anyways, it's that experience that led me to, I'll leave on Sunday to be a guardian on the Kansas Honor Flight for the first time. And, I had that conference call last night, and I can't even imagine what that will be like. I've been there, but my veteran has not. And we've not met before other than over the phone. And we'll meet on Sunday evening, but he's never been to the wall. He's a Vietnam vet. And so on this flight, we have one World War II vet who just turned 100. So it's like,
Oh,
I feel like I'm going to be meeting Elvis, on the plane. And then we have only 4 Korean vets and 91 Vietnam vets. And so, when you look at our history and you see those numbers dwindling, it's
yeah.
evidence. And for me, it's if I and other volunteers don't step up to help to volunteer for
Yeah.
these kinds of events and the museum specifically, who will what happens to that museum in
Yeah.
10 years? And
Yeah.
and that's not the only thing in Pratt that we could say that about. It's the volunteers are what
Mhm.
keep things going. It's just
Yeah.
as simple as that. You can have a board and you can manage things, but when it comes down to this event, it's the volunteer base that gets things done.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in the Wichita airport when none of those
Mm,
flights have returned, and it is,
yeah,
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 amazing.
yeah. I have lots of Kleenex in my bag.
Good. Good.
Good, good.
Yeah,
An honor to watch get off the plane. Everyone claps for them,
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And experiences because of the B29. Again, blessed that my experience at the bank and who I've gotten to know by working at the bank. It's my coworkers that encouraged me to join Rotary. And Rotary supports the B29, and the chamber supports the B29. And I've taken on, I call it an education initiative, but we've had, high school classes from Skyline and Pratt High out to the museum. And I love when people walk in the door and they've never been there before. And it's like, welcome, it's just a
It's
really,
just so full. I mean, it's just
yeah,
full of so much information and some really neat artifacts as well. Plus, you have a little movie theater in there
yes,
as well
yes,
that you got. It's just amazing. It really is. And I assume that the proceeds from the 5K all go back to the museum to help you
absolutely,
make
yes.
improvements and yeah,
Yes. Yes,
help
last
keep
year's
it going.
5K helped us do the upgrade to the movie theater. And so
Okay.
Mark and Barbara just finished that a couple months ago. And so the sound is just amazing. And, we can fit 30, there's 30 chairs in the theater, but yeah, just things like that. And right now the museum desperately needs new siding and paint. And this whole process has also taught me more about, seeking out grants and applying for grants. And because it's on the National Register for historic places, there's a lot of boxes that we have to check just to simply paint the building and and revitalize. And so, yes, all the proceeds go right back to the museum, and it's yeah, truly inspiring. What a lot of ideas that we have, and signage is something that we've been working on, and brainstorming about and trying to decide where to best put signage, because everyone knows where the airplanes are, the memorial site itself. And the museum is south of there. So that's probably the number one. People walk in the door, well, I didn't think I'd ever find you.
So hard to find the turnoff. Yeah.
So we recognize that signage is important, and but it's also, wow, it's really expensive. So looking at some ideas for that in the future.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So what does your kiddos, your family, I know that when I sent Maddie off into the world by herself, one of the first things she does when she goes into a community is to find some way to volunteer or get hooked up with a church or whatnot. And that just makes my heart happy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do your kids do the same thing? What do they think about
Yes.
all of your volunteer roles? And
they might say I'm crazy, but they do the same thing. It's kind of funny. Lindsay has helped with forensics, and we all struggle to say no, but it's not just about saying no. It's you see a need, and it's hard sometimes to justify going home because I need to do laundry when there's a need. And I know you both know my Alicia, who started the K-State alumni group in Des Moines, Iowa, and who knew that one did not exist. And she's been there a year, and you also know what that takes to organize just a watch party. And so she works for Corteva AgriScience, and they as a company promote volunteerism. And so, yeah, I think all three of mine seek that out. Sam, no longer in basic training, but has a job now with the Army, and but he's in a little slightly different range, but he's participating in All-American Week at the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg, and here in the next couple weeks, and he's doing a half marathon here next week, and so they get out and do things, and that to me is the most important. They get to know people, you meet new people by volunteering, you learn things. I literally am always learning things, and it's a rewarding experience. And I think hopefully I've lived by example in teaching that to them as well. But I also think they recognize the same benefits that I do. And it's once you get involved in something, and you see the commitment and the rewards that it brings to your life purpose, I think that there's more than just sitting behind your desk or being at home, and especially this time of year, there's so much to do. The weather is turning nice, and so it's fun to get involved.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why Jody and I wanted to tackle this topic today, besides it being National Volunteer Week, is just that we appreciate volunteers. I mean, obviously we appreciate our 4-H volunteers, and it just so happens I'm sending out fair volunteer letters this week.
Yeah.
Timing, but I think we also recognize what it takes to make the whole community, and that it's not just our volunteers that we wanted to give a shout out to this week on our podcast. So
yeah. And I know Jody's aware, but Pratt, I think is unique. Maybe not, but through the Chamber of Commerce, we have a VIP program, the Volunteers in Pratt program. And so, for instance, when it gets closer to my 5K date, June 7th, I could tap into the database where if you want to volunteer, but you don't know what you want to do or how to get involved, you can communicate with Ashley at the chamber and or ask questions, and she'll send you a list of who's in the database, what they said they like to do. Maybe it's someone who doesn't want to do things outdoors. Well, they could help me with packet pickup inside the museum, the day before the 5K. And but it's a young program. I think it's only been in place about a year, but I used it last year for the 5K. But you know, I hope to get more word out about that for, well, even the fair, committee. We need people to take tickets or whatever. That there's a list that exists, that we can tap into, and because I think that is the struggle sometimes, is people want to do things, but they're either not aware of, maybe they're not on social media. So they're not aware of the events that are looking for volunteers. All of our museums, need volunteer help. And so I just was fascinated when I learned about that program, and because I can apply as someone who's looking for volunteers, but I can also add my name to the database as a willing volunteer. And so it's just a really cool thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was going to actually be my next question before we wrap up here, was how do we get volunteers? How do we encourage people to volunteer? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes all you have to do is ask. Mm-hmm. I think people are willing to help. Sometimes they're just waiting to be asked. And that volunteer database you're talking about is their way of saying, I'm here. Ask me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And I don't know enough to know if that was modeled after, another chamber or, but I loved the idea, loved it. And, I had volunteers who just literally stood along the 5K route to be cheerleaders. And it's like, it's just the little things, but it makes a difference. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of retired individuals in our community too, that, they're just looking for something to do. My grandma Chance, she was part of the retired senior volunteer at the RSVP program that, started years ago. He loved volunteering.
Yes.
He loved having something to do. So don't discount your retired people in your communities either, because they are some of our most willing volunteers that we have. Absolutely. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. So, Ms. Robin, did you have anything else to add to our volunteer recruitment, volunteer appreciation?
Well, I guess if somebody's listening and they're looking for a way to volunteer, contact us. We can help connect you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't have to be as super uber involved as Shannon is, but we would love it if you would.
Yes. And, and that's the case. We have to know that it's hard to believe, but not everybody has social media, a connection there. And, we forget that sometimes. I mean, kids, they don't communicate. That's how they get their news. We talk about websites. I just told someone yesterday, fewer and fewer people are going to a website anymore. As if you want to look up the phone number for, PRMC, you're going to probably go to Facebook. And it's just, we have to adapt. And yet we have to remember that those retired, a lot of my veterans, we have to be able to communicate among all avenues. And spreading the word is the best way. And so, no, I appreciate that you guys are doing this. I think it's fabulous. And you want to help me on June 7th, call me.
Before or after the parade? I'll be a parade participant, but I will see what I can do, ma'am. Anytime.
Absolutely.
Shannon, thanks again for
thank you
doing this with us. It was so fun to visit with you this morning. And again, I would encourage anyone to visit the museum. You are open on Sunday afternoons. Is that correct?
Yes. Sunday afternoons, 2 to 4 is our regular hours at this time, but with the open range in town this weekend, the bike race, I'm helping with check-in on Friday night, but we have a family who travels for the open range and they want to see the museum. It's the Graber family, and they have connections at the museum.
Yep,
And so absolutely, we will open up for them. So I always tell people, if you want to see the museum and it's not Sunday between 2 and 4, reach out. And if it's not me, Milt, Martin, my mom, we have folks that would be happy to go out and open the museum. So yes,
Yep.
anytime.
Okay. All right. What else, Miss Robin?
I think that's it for this week.
Okay. I will wrap
Well,
us up then. If you need to get a hold of us, if you'd like to volunteer, hint, hint, you can email us at reubank@kesu.edu, or you can email me at jdrake@ksu.edu. You can find us on Facebook at Barber County Extension, right? Or,
Yep.
or Pratt CO Extension on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram at Pratt CO Extension and on YouTube at Pratt CO Extension. Did I forget anything, Robin? Oh, and find our podcast on Spotify and Apple.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well,
All right.
thank you both so much
right.
for
Thank
doing this. And 11th hour or not, it's easy to talk about the things you love. So I appreciate being asked. Thank you.
It is. Thank you
Right.
very much.
Thank
All
you.
right.